think that's his. Okay. Well, anyways, okay. Okay. Damix Ganotony. This is Sit Down with Nin'na, episode 15. Never thought we'd get this far on episode 15, but today we got Kevin Waterchief in the house. He is a local, I guess, musical artist, right?
Yeah, I
Uh,
do some music as well.
yeah. Also, too, he runs a couple of programs. We're going to be talking a little bit about that today. But other than that, tell the people who you are, Kevin. Your accomplishments. Give everybody like an introduction on who you are.
Okay, this wanna go Chiskani na may it's an antidote Gnuxumadex. My name is Kevin Waterchief. My Blackfoot name is Morning Gun. Yeah, I'm just a modern day warrior here from Siksika. Um, I'll get started by things that I've done. I've worked in the school for 9, almost 10 years. Worked with the elementary students. Met a lot of good future leaders. Met a lot of good staff helping us out with our next generation. I think I've been working with youth almost since I was about 14 years old. Started working with Youth Chief and Council, and then I got into Youth Task Force, and then everything just kind of fell into place after that. I just continued to try and do my best to help out our six gut children and help out our way of life. Yeah. So right now I'm working with Siksika prevention and early intervention, and we got a lot of programs that are for the community to help out with preventing them from different negative lifestyles or preventing them from falling into some of the systems like having their kids apprehended and stuff like that. So we're just trying to create healthier families and healthier generation of youth. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I do a little bit of hip hop as you mentioned earlier. Same thing with that. I do use it as a tool to try and help and heal our people.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of go through a lot as Blackfoot people. Well, we've always been through a lot of things, but it's the resilience that keeps us going, and it's our elders that keep us going. It's following their teachings, following what they're saying, and I think the Creator's greatest gift is your ears. See it, listen to what somebody's saying and process it and think, why are they saying this? Why are they telling me this information? Because everything, everything has a purpose, and everything has a spirit. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so
Oh yeah, definitely. Maybe the one thing I guess you mentioned at working with youth. Do you think you could tell us a little bit about so some of the things that you're uh, like your music, for example? I know that you said you use it as a tool to um, I guess could you say escape or tell your story, kind of a tool to help youth. Uh, can you like give us the reason why you got into hip hop? Stuff like that. Maybe you got into hip hop because of different experiences that you had. I think the a lot of youth would actually benefit from hearing, your reasons. Maybe your journey.
I think I started off my journey a little misguided,
Mm-hmm.
falling into rap. You fall into these certain different circles following the rap scene, and you got to always remember that it's entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
The rappers that I followed back in the day were the ones that were making the most noise, like NWA, Tupac, all those rappers where it originated from. And so I started following those, started following into that trend, and then I realized that a lot of that kind of stuff didn't really fit with me, and I didn't want to be walking around my reserve acting like a wannabe gangster and doing dirt or creating issues on the reserve. I had to When I first started out, my lyrics were very there was a lot of swears in them. There was a lot of talking about like drinking and partying because at the time when I was young, I thought that was cool. But again, I was just didn't have enough
Mm-hmm.
supervision at that time to or somebody guiding me in the right direction, telling me that this is not who we are as Nitsitapi. This is not who we are as Blackfoot people.
Yeah.
And so once I started realizing, because of, vocally, I was pretty crafty with the words that I put together for verses and for songs and for things that I've wrote, and it started to have an impact on my younger cousins, the younger people in the community. They started following these things like they were cool, and then I realized how strong my voice was. So when I realized how strong my voice was, I had to go back to one of our old teachings. Watch what you say. Watch what you say. Verbally your tongue is a weapon. Yeah. And so anything that you say and anything that you do in this world, it always tends to come back to you. So that's why it's always careful to watch what you do to people, watch what you say to people, watch how you treat people, because in one way or another, it'll always come around and it'll always come back to you. So when I realized that I had a stronger voice and people were listening to me, that's when I knew I had to change my way of thinking. I had to learn how to spread a better message, how to spread a more positive message, but also not lose my cool. But at the same time, so I just, it was listening to my grandmother, Reverend Margaret Waterchief. She was a very strong Christian, and she talked a lot about prayer. She taught me about prayer as a young kid. She always made me go to church. She always made me try to listen in church. She always taught me we learned catechism and stuff like that. But the important part of that was that she taught me prayer, because prayer is one of the most important things that you can teach a child these days, especially growing up in this world full of poverty, especially growing up where kids are growing up in situations where they don't have any control over. They grow up in homes with different kinds of abuse, alcohol abuse, sexual abuse, physical abuse. They endure so much, and it's not even their choice to be there. They were born into it, and so they were raised into it, and so their mindset, they start shutting down because of all these negative cycles that are around them. And when they shut down, it's hard to teach that. It's hard to teach that individual anything, because they don't trust anybody. They don't trust in the information, because the important places where they were supposed to learn trust, from family, from mothers, from fathers, having those figures there, from not having those people there, they lost that trust. So they shut those doors to trust people. And so that's why it's harder for them to trust these days. And so they turn to alcohol, they turn to drugs, or they turn to whatever looks cool. And so that in that sort of sense, I had to watch what I was saying, watch what I was doing, because I didn't want to misguide anybody. I didn't want to have a generation of alcoholics or a generation of drug addicts and stuff like that, just because I was making it look cool at the time. And so I used music as a way of expression. I express myself. I express myself through my writing. I express myself on stage when I do my songs, and I express myself through the effects that it has on people. People start to enjoy my music when it comes out the way it does nowadays, rather than before, when it was just people following whatever, young people following whatever I said, right? Now I use it as a tool to help, to share something that I think is important. And so I use that, and I put it in my lyrics. I use it while I'm writing. You use a lot. You channel all your feelings and all your emotions, and you turn them into something good. That's the gift that music has. And I think expression is a strong tool that we really need to push on our reserve with our youth and our children, because expression is going to help them with anxiety. Expression is going to help them open up to some doors that they may have shut because of they're a victim of their situation. They're a victim of the way they grew up. They're a victim of where they came from. And so I think it's important that more younger, or more of us males step up for these younger children. More of us males step up for in these roles that need where these kids need to find this good information. You know, um, about teaching them right from wrong. You know, teaching them important things in life, teaching them how to survive in a world like today. And that's why I came up with the name Modern Day Warriors, and I came up with that a while ago, but I never copyrighted it or anything like that. But Modern Day Warriors is just taking the past, living in the present, and using the good tools to head to the future, to create good things. You know, nowadays we're losing our Blackfoot language. We're losing a lot. You know, because a lot of us don't even have it. A lot of us in this age don't even have it, and so it's important for us to listen. Like I said, see it, listen to our elders that we still have around, and always pray. Wake up with prayer. You know, prayer is one of the strongest tools that we can have today, and that's what we got to teach the children, along with other things. I know in our community there's a lot of addictions, and we're getting outnumbered by the addictions. So it's important for us to pray every day, whether it's Christianity, whether it's down at the Achgugats, and you know, to pray in our ceremonies. Prayer is one of our strongest gifts in the world today, and it's who we are as Nitsitapi. You know, that's who we are, is praying people. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of like that reminds me of like when you said you kind of really didn't have that it's kind of like a hard beginning kind of a thing. I guess in a sense I kind of understand where you're coming from, because me too, when I was younger, the cool thing was with everybody, you know what I mean? Everybody wanted to drink. Not saying that everybody drank or you drank, but that was the cool thing to do, you know?
Yeah.
But back when I was younger, at least, and the cool thing to do was to. I remember the first time, being here. When I moved here from BC with my dad, and I remember the first time hearing at the high school, not at the high school, well, with my friends that I got to know. The cool thing was to go and get, they would all say pissed. But when I first came here, I thought everybody was like mad, but no,
Yeah.
they were getting pissed and drinking and stuff. And it was just the cool thing to do, I guess. And I guess being young, you don't know what's right or wrong, so you just kind of follow the crowd. You don't know where to go. You know, you're what you're drawn to, and you don't even know it. That you're actually kind of being led into a circle of addictions that have been passed down from different generations. Like I did, yeah, I didn't even know that from like just seeing. That's why I'm kind of thankful for having like my dad, my parents, and stuff, being able to be like, hey, that's bad, you know. But like like you said, we need more male role models, you know, out there, kind of like who are clean, you know, who are kind of that person who goes to Sundance or prays, you know, even that too. I think we also kind of judge too much on like, to me, I don't really think it matters what you pray. You know, I don't judge people if they follow Christianity or if they follow Anglican, you know, if they or if they go to a Golgatson, you know. I think prayer is prayer, you know. I think that's something that we should stop, is hating on like not hating, but disliking somebody because they simply pray in the church, you know. I think, yeah, sure. I think it's something that is we should stop the what's that word again? Animosity. Yeah, it was.
And that's what negative cycles usually bring. They bring a lot of anger. They bring a lot of animosity. They bring a lot of confusion. A lot of this stuff, if you really want to get to the root of it, it came from intergenerational trauma. It came from residential schools. It came from a lot of us. Heard stories from residential schools. I've heard a lot of stories from residential schools, and just listening to the way they were treated, just listening to the way they were talked to, just listening to all the stories, it really shut a lot of our people down. They
Mhm.
really created a lot of issues. They didn't know how to deal with those issues. It goes far back as even 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 a lot of misunderstanding. Like some of our people would ask their parents, "Well, why did you let them take me away? Why did you let them take me to residential school or that?" Not realizing that it wasn't even a choice. It was the law. It was the law that all of our ancestors had to attend these schools and be a part of this. And so it kind of leaves a lack into those parents who were trying to for their children but didn't get that opportunity to. So they kind of
Mhm.
feel like they failed their children, in which it wasn't even their fault to begin with.
Yeah.
How somebody comes in your home and takes your child and forces something terrible on you if they don't take your child.
Mhm.
That's tough to deal with mentally, and then
Mhm.
that's where a lot of our people resorted to alcohol.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some were fortunate, some were less fortunate,
Mhm.
but they resorted to alcohol just to forget,
Mhm.
trying to numb that thought, trying to numb that feeling, trying to numb the that unhealed that
Mhm.
unhealed situation that happened to them. And I remember alcohol really hit our reserve pretty strong.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know how many years ago. It was quite a few years ago,
Was
but
that 67?
yeah,
I believe.
it was around in those years,
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
60s, 70s. Alcohol really hit our reserve hard, and it was because of the residential school trauma. It was
Mhm.
because of, you know, not being able to explain why things were the way they were, and lot of, lot of, lot of elders hold back on it because they don't want to go back to that memory to share what had happened to them because they feel ashamed of what happened to them, in which that wasn't their fault at all either.
Mhm.
So it's very touchy subject in
Mhm.
some areas, and we do as a younger generation have to respect what they don't want to tell,
Mhm.
because just going through that kind of thing is very mentally disturbing. It's
Mhm.
very traumatizing, and
Mhm.
then it's that intergenerational trauma that kind of had a ripple effect.
Mhm.
We're starting to be more colonized and think like the colonizers, and that's
Mhm.
when we kind of go around feeling like we have a right to judge, but nobody has a right to judge.
Yeah.
We only have the right to treat each other good because we are all we are all individuals. So we think as individuals, but we're not alone here. We're all together. So we got to make sure those two are balanced in the
Yeah.
way we help one another, in the way we think.
Yeah.
That's why in both teachings, it's always you treat people how you want to be treated.
Mhm.
You always treat people good. And me, I was fortunate. My grandma Margaret really focused on the children, taking care of the kids, taking care of the children. So that really changed my way of thinking. That really helped me to always to understand that our children are our future, and they're the most important right now. And the reason we aren't going at a quicker pace is because we're not focusing on our children as much as we should. And I'm only speaking from like just from me in my opinion. I'm not saying, oh, you're not being a good parent or you're not doing this or that.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from what I see is there needs to be more community focus on our children, more community focus on our children, and we'll move at a quicker pace.
Mhm.
Working in this school, that's why I spent so many years working in this school, because that was the root of the issue. Is teaching these kids simple things like how to treat one another, how to do good and stuff
Mhm.
like that, how to help them, how to be kind, because it's that way of thinking that's going to help them in the future when they're working with each other. They're not going to be fighting like us do in the older generation. A lot of us kind of go back and forth because we feel like we're right, but
Mhm.
that's not really it. We're just here to help each other. We're
Mhm.
here to teach each other. We're here to share. We're here to express ourselves. But
Mhm.
um, people don't want to be people don't want to be expressive if they're going to be laughed at. People don't want to be expressive if people are going to judge them for it. So they don't express that, and everybody has the right to be the way they want to be and should be respected for that. Everybody deserves respect. I mean,
Mhm.
everybody should get respect. If they're trying their best and they're trying hard and
Mhm.
they're not hurting anybody else, then they deserve that respect.
Mhm.
They deserve that respect back. That's just the way it goes.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
That's really good. You know what I mean? It's just it's like one of those things that we like what you're saying with the ripple effect. You know what I mean? We have no idea it's happening. You know, and I think that's one of the hardest things to notice is that we I was kind of thinking about this to myself the other day. Actually, is that it kind of like, how do I say it? It's something to be very self-aware of. It's hard to be self-aware of. You know, kind of a. I kind of noticed it the other day. You know, I was kind of what's the word? I was kind of like, you know, thinking of the generational trauma, right? We don't realize how much it affects us, right? We don't really realize that, but it's almost like you don't realize it until you're like, okay,
Till it's already happened.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, or
till it's
till it's
already
happening to you.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and that was what the colonizers' way of thinking was,
yeah,
is to think like that.
yeah.
But as Blackfoots, we were always taught to think 7 generations ahead.
Mm-hmm.
That's what kept us ahead of everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Was because we always thought 7 generations ahead, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we need to get back to that way of thinking because that's what's gonna really help our children in today's world
Mm-hmm.
is thinking like that, so that they don't end up in those situations
Mm-hmm.
where something's already happened to them before they even realized it. Our people always, our ancestors always had that gift of seeing far ahead,
Mm-hmm.
and now as things are falling into place, we're losing that.
Yeah.
And to kind of explains what you're talking about,
Yeah.
which a lot of us have been through, right?
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, being young and me being young and growing up around a lot of drugs and alcohol, it that's what that creates. It
mm-hmm.
creates that. Um, it takes away that self-awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Takes away that self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
because you're trying to figure things out, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to figure things out. It's like trying to survive in chaos.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's such a wild thought to think about when you think about it too. It's just like, how do I say it? It's like the fact also too is that the fact that we're sitting here speaking English. You know what I mean? The fact that, you know, that we're not here, you know, in a teepee, you know,
Yeah.
with our buckskins on.
Oh,
And it's kind of a sad thing to say, but it was almost successful, you know.
It'd be nice to be in a nice cool teepee on a hot day like today.
Yeah. It'd be nice. It's kind of, I find it sad, even though that it did sort of work, you know, the colonization in a sense. But
Oh yeah.
but I feel that also too we have a lot to gain from it too because I like what you said about your modern day warrior too. It kind of puts in the sense that we're living in a fast world, so it's good to keep that balance of having our old ways, you know, still practicing them because we're still able to practice them, right? But we're living in such a new tech world that we still have to adapt to things. Like we have to have a job, you know what I mean? We have to work with technology, social media. So we still have to live this dull life of being a Blackfoot, right? But at the same time, we have to keep up with everything else, you know? We have to get a car now, you know? We have to file for taxes and stuff, which is it's keeping up, you know. Well, that's why I liked what you said, being a modern day warrior. You know, it's kind of it's hard, you know, being a native nowadays because you got to do so much. It's almost like doing overtime all the time. You know, we got to have our regular life, but then we also got to work twice as hard to keep our culture alive.
For sure.
It's a crazy thing to do. Just having to, even just like, let's say you're having your job and then you got to go down to Sundance, right?
Yeah.
Or even just going to church too. You know, it's so hard teaching after work and then going.
It's almost like an overload of information. Yeah, it's an overload of information.
Yeah,
That's the colonizers' way of thinking. We were taught to be thinkers like that. We were kind of like. They taught us that in school, you know, that process of what we're talking about, thinking that this is important when really we could be doing so many other things rather than that. But they make us stay in the school for this many hours to do this much, to do all of this, when really there's so much more to life than that. There's so much more to life than what we're being taught in the modern day. So it's important to find balance, and it's tricky to find balance when we live in such a fast-paced world, like you said.
Yeah.
You know, it's tricky to find that balance. But if you believe in good, and you always, you know, we are where we're supposed to be in life, and you got to have faith in that. You can pray but you got to back it up with faith. You got to believe in your prayers, believe that you are where you're supposed to be, and those kind of things, they carry you in within life. They help you. Like me, I got a high school diploma, and I'm able to do certain jobs that people who have degrees or masters, they can't do the same work that I do in the community. They can't do, because they're lacking in different areas. I'm not to knock them on all the knowledge that they've learned, but it when you listen, the stronger thinkers are the ones that were raised by their grandparents, and those are the strong thinkers. Those are the ones that were raised by their grandparents, because they were given more than what the school had to offer. They were given more teachings than what the school had to offer. They were given a way of a way of thinking, and that way of thinking helps them in almost every situation that they end up in. Whether it's technology, whether it's school, whether it's this or that, there's people who are in ceremony but are still capable of being successful in the modern day world, and that's the resilience in our people. That's who we are. Is people who never give up, no matter what's in front of us. We will get through, and we got to teach our children that no matter what's put in front of them, they will get through everything that they're going through, and everything is put in front of them for a reason. And it's up to us to believe that there's always something better. There's always a greater future, and that's why I don't really fall into those conversations where they say, "Oh, the world's gonna end," or this or that. Somebody who's predicting the future or whatnot. That's not something that I want to teach these children. I want to teach them that no matter what their situation is, there's always something better. It can always be changed for the greater good. Just depending on how they think and how hard they work. You got to work hard for the things that you want in life, and if you want more out of life, you got to work for it, because not a lot of things are given. So
that's one crazy thing too. It's just the one thing that you touched on too was the shoot, it was in my head, but what was I gonna say? It was in my head. No, you're talking about our children, the children that, what they see. And
we got to bridge that gap. Bridge that gap from the elders to the children, because there's a huge gap from our elders and our children, and we need to figure out a way to bridge that gap. And the only way that we're going to create a stronger community is by creating stronger families, and that goes by, it takes a community to raise a child. And that's one thing that my grandma told me when she talked about leadership. She talked about those kind of things. I asked her about leadership at one time, and she told me it takes a community to raise a child. And I thought about that. I didn't just say, "Oh, okay." I thought, what does she mean by it takes a community to raise a child? And then when you see a kid doing wrong, you don't ignore it because it's not your kid. You say, "Hey, you don't do that," but you don't scold them and give them heck for doing what they're doing. You tell them why it's not good to do that, and those are the proper things, is backing it up with understanding. And that's what I did with a lot in working in the schools, is I wouldn't just tell them something, I'd tell them why they're doing it and why it's important. And then their understanding kicked in, because their mind is a sponge, that they realized, they picked that up so quickly. It wasn't just you don't do this or you don't do that. It was like, no, they know why. So there's no question. They just do the right thing after that, because they understand there's good, there's bad, there's right, there's wrong, there's life, there's death. There's a lot of things in this world that we have to deal with, and we have to do it accordingly, and we have to do it with balance. Everybody's excited when a new baby comes to this world, and then we're sad when our loved ones pass. But we got to be thankful for the life that they lived. We got to be thankful for all the teachings that they taught us before they passed. We got to be thankful for the relationship with that individual before he left, and be thankful for that we were given that person. If that person has showed good friendship or taught us a thing or two, or showed us love, whether it's brotherhood, sisterhood, anything like that. And that's why I think family's the most important thing. Family is the most important thing. And if we can figure out a way to create healthier homes in our community through programs, through whatever it takes, through going back to having community gatherings, those are, the more we gather in a positive way, is the more is what's going to help us in the future, because it's going to teach our kids good things. It's going to teach our kids good things when we gather for a good cause, when they see us helping each other, not just because we're related, helping each other because we're the same. We're the same. We're the same human being. It doesn't matter what race you come from. Doesn't matter what beliefs you come from. Doesn't matter how you live your life. As long as you're not hurting other people, you shouldn't be judged for it. And if we can live and teach those things to our children, they're going to live in a more comfortable world. And when they're more comfortable, that's when it's easier for them to grow more. But when they're struggling with comfort, then they're always just going to live their life trying to find comfort, trying to be comfortable. When really, we are stronger than that. They are stronger than that. But it's up to us to take those steps, we need more coaches on the reserve. We need more referees. We need more umpires. We need more computer tech people teaching our kids about computers and technology and podcasts and all those kind of things. We need to support everything that's going to help our kids. Gather as much tools as they can to help them in the future. Because when you look at our grandparents, they weren't just good at one thing. They were like farmers. They were welders. They were cattle owners. They were horsemen, and then they were bundle holders. They held a lot with just in one individual. And nowadays, our kids kind of struggle trying to be good at something. And it's that colonized way of thinking, But you can't baby your kids too much. It's good to show love, but you can't baby them too much. You got to teach them. They're smart. They're very smart. Kids are the most intelligent people on this planet because their mind's a sponge. Their mind's fresh. They don't have a lot of things already shut down. They express themselves like they're supposed to be, like a human being. So they're pure, right? And so you take that and you take that purity and you fill it with more good things. They're gonna live in a better world with just the people they're around. Because everybody's gonna want to be around that individual because they show a lot of love, because they show a lot of compassion, because they help, because they're a good person. And that's all we can be in today's world, is a good person. A lot of us fall into these roles, fall into these things, and with some of these things that we fall into, whether it's work based, whether it's prayer based, some of these things come with power. And power is only good. Power is only meant for good, to help other people. It's not to help yourself. So when you end up with these things, you're to heal, you're to help. That's why you're there. Whether it's a boss, whether it's a worker, you're given this authority, you're given this power, not for yourself. It's given to you to help others, because that tells you who you are as an individual. And if you're only in it for yourself, it's going to show. If you only do things for yourself, it's going to show. And that's a lonely road to live on, because not a lot of people want to be around somebody who's only helping themselves. Because when you think about it, what's the point behind that? Why am I going to attach myself to somebody who only wants to help themselves? Because what's gonna end up happening is they're only going to be taking from me all the time to help themselves. And when I expect something back, where is it? When that person wasn't taught those kind of values, they were only taught to help themselves. So that's why it's very important that our powers don't end up in the wrong hands. And it's important that you understand power, you understand leadership, because that's what we're trying to create in these modern day warriors. Back in the day, we were all leaders because of the way we thought. And that's what kept us strong as Blackfoot people, is thinking in that process. So you don't abuse power, no matter where it comes from. If you're given power, it's to help people, it's to heal people, it's to share good. It's not for self. It's not for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. This is you actually reminded me of what you were gonna say too. What I was gonna say about you were talking about the way we were thinking too. I feel like too, even our thinking has changed. You know what I mean? With back with the way you were explaining things, it's very it comes from like a lot of old teachings. You know what I mean? It comes from the it's not the same way people think today. Everybody's so logical nowadays.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Everybody has there.
Seeing is believing.
Yeah, yeah. There has to be some sort of logical explanation for something, and to me, I don't really feel like that's a way of. I guess I'm not trying to judge anybody
Yeah.
though, but I feel like when you try to live like that, everything has to be so literal. It's almost like putting yourself in a box. You know what I mean? You're putting yourself in a box. Your thoughts are in the box. But when you start thinking like a Blackfoot, the way you think, it opens up so much new ways of thinking, so much new ways of being kind. It's just it's almost like being a philosopher, like a philosopher, if you know what I mean. It's a weird analogy, but like,
I know what you mean by philosophy.
yeah, 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 being,
I understand that.
yeah, being very open minded to things, being very, openly, like, kind. And it's just so much like a better life of living, you know what I mean? And, uh, to get the root at it, the logical thinking. So, like, for example, like, for somebody who thinks logical nowadays, everything has to be set like this. You need facts. You need these
Not
certain
in this
type.
world.
Yeah,
Not in
yeah,
this world. And it's because we live in a spiritual world.
yeah, yeah.
And that's why we were pretty strong as Blackfoot people, because it's it to be, praying,
Yeah.
prayer. That's the important part of being
Mhm.
it's it to be is the prayers. And so living in a spiritual world, that's why that way of thinking doesn't really work in this kind of world, because we were taught as Blackfoots that everything has a spirit. Even a rock has a spirit. Every single thing has a spirit, and you can even create spirits.
Mhm.
So living in a spiritual world, you always got to be mindful of that.
Mhm.
Anything's possible. Anything,
Yeah, yeah.
anything you can do anything you put your mind to.
Mhm.
Because if you look at how things were way back in the day, before people started becoming thinkers, before we had microphones, before we had phones, before we had all of this stuff, how did this stuff come to be? From having rocks and wood, from having different things, and it was because somebody believed in these things. Somebody believed in these things enough to make them happen.
Mhm.
And that's why I believe you can do anything you put your mind to.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
But strong minds are should be only given to people that are helpers.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's because when you get somebody who has a strong mind, but they're not healed in certain areas, that's going to have an effect on their strong mind, and they're going to be a big influence on people with that negativity that wasn't healed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's almost like how do you say it? It's we're teaching people with our insecurities, I guess,
Yeah.
is what you could say. Kind of like you're haven't haven't healed from that. I guess that goes back to generational trauma. I guess it's just I guess you could say raising. Again, not judging, but
Yeah.
that generational trauma comes from raising our kids with our insecurities. You know what I mean? When we, like, for example, when we get mad at our kids,
Yeah.
we're like, oh, I'm getting mad at them all the time. But that's because, I, like, for example, this is just an example, I was raised, or let's say that this man, right, imaginary man, was getting mad at his child all the time, right? And he was saying, getting mad at him for all these different things. Hey, you're doing this, and he hits him, right? He's raising his child with insecurities because that's how he was raised.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was raised because he was hit,
Yeah.
and so in turn, that's one of the things too. Goes back to we don't see it until after it happens.
That's actually something that you need to grow out of. It's because it's a strong way. It was strongly enforced on that person when they were hit. And so sometimes they do it without processing the thought quick enough. They'll just it starts to become a reaction.
Yeah.
When you do it so much, it starts to become a reaction.
Yeah.
And so these negative reactions, those are reactions to, and they don't think, well, maybe I shouldn't do this. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe it was, it happened to me and it was wrong, and so I shouldn't pass this on. None of that ever comes into thought when the situation's right in front of them. It just becomes a reaction. But just like that, how it becomes a reaction, that's a negative reaction. That we can also create positive reactions.
Yeah, yeah.
Positive reactions to those kind of situations, you know. So, like, you know, there's always a balance between things. There's yes, there's no. And so if we can teach those reactions like that, then we can teach good reactions just as well. But it takes a lot to do that. It takes a lot of people coming together for a good cause to teach these good things to our children.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Especially when you're brought up with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard thing to get out of. That was one of the things that I used to think of. You know, how can we how can we teach somebody that's been raised with those kind of reactions? You know what I mean? Where with the constant like, because we will get those kind of people where they're like
You have to figure out a way to get them out of that environment.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
if they're still in that environment, it's still going to feel natural and comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take somebody who's been in a negative environment and you put them in a positive environment, their first reaction is to not like it because they're not going to be comfortable with the positivity. They're going to be like, oh, you're just acting good. Oh, you're just, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're not going to be comfortable. But we're not meant to be always comfortable. When you get
Yeah,
too
yeah.
comfortable in life, that's when things take advantage of you. When you get too comfortable, that's when somebody puts the blindfold over your eyes. When you get too comfortable, that's when you get caught slipping. You know, so change is going to be always change is good, but it's going to be tough. People don't like to change. People like things comfortable,
Yeah,
and that's
yeah.
what we were kind of raised to think with, right?
Yeah,
But it's not the way things were done. You know, when you do stuff like putting up a teepee, it's always a lot of work. When you do anything Blackfoot, it's always a lot of work, and it'll be uncomfortable if you're not always doing it.
Yeah.
But if you're always doing it, it's just another day. Just the way you're doing it, you know, you don't even give it a second thought. But if you don't do it every day, you're like, oh, this is hard work. Oh, you know, I gotta do this all the time. You know, that kind of thinking will set you back, right?
Yeah.
And it's because you're uncomfortable because you're too comfortable with the way things used to be. Yeah. So we gotta with growth comes discomfort, but beyond that discomfort, it's what you're pushing for. You know, it's why you're trying to change. And when you've reached that level, when you actually feel like you've changed, you feel better about yourself, and then you don't have to look back on that negative thing that was holding you back, or those negative thoughts that were holding you back. Yeah, because we can control our mind, but we can't control our mind, if you know what I mean. You know, sometimes our mind is the biggest thing that holds us back, but at the same time, our mind is the strongest thing we need to move forward based on how we think, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's just wild to think about how much has been taken. You know what I mean? How much has been, I guess you could say the stuff that we have essentially, as Blackfoot people, the amount of stuff that we lost, right? You know, back in the, like, even in the 40s or 50s, right? When something happened on the east side, right? We didn't even need cell phones or anything. So somebody would drink or somebody would something bad would happen and the whole reserve would find out, right? And they'd be like, oh no, and then everybody would, you know, be like, okay, well, this person.
It's a funny thing because that's why it was so easy for them to take advantage of us through residential school and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have the communication and we lived so far apart.
Yeah.
So like you couldn't be on the phone saying, hey, you know, they're coming to take our children or something like that.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have that technology when they needed it, right? Yeah, and so that was a tool that was used. That was, you know, how they say divide and conquer, right?
Yeah.
Well, we lived all over the land, and that's why it was easy for them to just come and take kids away from their families. Imagine them coming in West G taking, like, imagine we were warrior thinkers and we lived in villages like this, and white people, a small group of colonizers came in to take our children. Look how many people are around them that are not going to let that happen, right? But we didn't. The reserves weren't built like this back in the day. Everything was so far apart. Everything was so far apart, and so I guess it was in a sense easier to take advantage of that and take advantage of us, you know.
That's also another thought. I guess it's more of an imaginary thought of what would have happened if we, I guess, if that didn't happen. How would we be living our lives right now if residential school didn't come? You know, if we managed to keep our children, if we managed to keep the Sundance going, like if we didn't let drinking get to us, you know, what would have happened if we like would we still be in teepees? Well, you know, or would I be here? Would we be here still recording like this? But I would be in my buckskin. You know, I guess those are kind of like I guess wishful thinking. You know what I
We
mean?
wouldn't be living under law. We
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
be living under anybody,
yeah,
the law of anybody.
yeah, yeah.
We
Definitely.
would be living in the communities that we had, that we took care of. We
Yeah,
would be surviving. We
yeah,
would
yeah.
be surviving, if not better than how we are today. And it
Mm-hmm.
was because we didn't follow the law of anybody else, and we didn't think like anybody else.
Yeah, yeah.
We had everything we needed, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what we were taught: is you only take what you need, and you
Yeah,
don't take more. But when you think about it in a colonized sense, it's just take as
yeah.
much as you can, and whoever has the biggest house is,
Mm-hmm.
the most powerful or whatever. So,
Yeah,
that way of thinking,
yeah.
in which it's not. Those are materialistic things. We live in a
Mm-hmm.
materialistic world where we think that these things are important. But what's really important is our good history.
Mm-hmm.
It's good to know history. Only it's good to know history, even if it's negative history, only to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Mm-hmm.
But in the way of thinking of today, we need to look at we need to look at the good things that we have in our community right now to survive. There's a lot of good leaders within our communities. Our teachers at the schools, those are leaders.
Yeah.
There's people working in different departments trying to do good things for the community.
Mm-hmm.
Those are leaders. Leadership doesn't come from being on chief and council.
Yeah,
Leadership doesn't. You don't get that title when you become chief and council. You wake up, you do good, and it's not up to you to say, "Oh, I'm a leader." It's up to other people,
yeah.
because you can't be a leader if nobody's following you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
so we have a lot of good leaders in our schools. All the
Mm-hmm.
teachers. We even have non-native teachers that come in that are teaching our kids good values, good heartful values, and they work hard. They work hard teaching our kids good things.
Yeah.
But do we see that as a community? No, we don't. As soon as something goes wrong, we blame the school. We blame this. We blame that. And we got to get out of that way of thinking of blaming. You got to be at the situation to know the story, and that's the best way to go about things. You can't go off of, oh well, I heard this. Oh well, I heard that. Oh, I heard this. I heard that. The only time you hear a lot of that kind of talk is during election year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, when everybody's trying to get on chief and council, and it becomes very negative.
Yeah.
It becomes a very negative atmosphere, and you see people showing unhealed trauma within those times because of the way they're lashing out on Facebook, because the way they're lashing out at other families, the way they're lashing out. That's unhealed trauma, because if their great grandparents were watching them, they wouldn't be speaking like that.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be, if they were taught in the Blackfoot way, they wouldn't be speaking like that. They wouldn't be doing those kind of things. But because a lot of us are unhealed. All of us are unhealed. There's no perfect person in this world. Everybody is just trying their best to survive. But that's not 7 generations ahead. So we need to try and do something to fix that. And that's why I going back to focusing on the children and trying to feed them good things, trying to teach them sports, trying to teach them music, trying to teach them art, trying to teach them anything you possibly can that is good, that's going to help them, that's going to make them feel whole, that's going to make them feel important. What residential school took away was our ability. What residential took away from us was love. They taught us how to love each other. A lot of people feel uncomfortable just around the word love. They think it's too soft, or they think it's ruined for them because somebody took advantage of that love. You know what I mean? And they don't know how to express love. They don't know how to share love. Even a lot of us have trouble sharing love with our own children, showing love to our own children. I love you. You did a good job. Keep doing what you're doing, you know. And you could show love without babying them. Because once you start babying them, you weaken them. Because they won't want to do anything for themselves. Because of the love you have for them is going to make you want to do everything for them. But that's not the way we got to think. We got to teach our children while they're young. We got to teach them while their mind is a sponge. But children these days will follow their parents. So, they'll follow the way their parents react. They'll follow the way their parents are. Because that's all they see on a daily basis, and that's how they learn. So it's important for us to be good examples. Try and be better examples. And I'm not a perfect person, but I try to be a better example. I try to be a better example for my children by always working hard, by trying to show kindness as much as I can, just in those kind of things, and showing that things are important, showing that our ways are important, just like in Christianity, in our Siksika way of life, in different ways of life, there's always going to be bad apples ruining it for everybody. And what that does is it pushes people away from good things. It pushes people away from prayer. It pushes people away. A lot of people are scared of our ways because some people aren't being the best examples with our way of life. And just that goes along with church too. There's people in church saying, oh, you can't do this or you can't do that, or you're going to go to hell for this, you're going to go to hell for that. That's not the way it was taught. That's not the way it was meant to be taught. When you look at some of the teachings, Jesus never turned anybody away, and Creator's never going to turn his back on his Blackfoot people, so those, you don't it's not our place to judge one another. But it is our place to focus on our children and to teach them good things,
Yeah, exactly. It's I guess an ongoing thing. I guess that we still have to, in a sense, I guess practice. And we're rearing towards the end of our this episode, but just to close things off, I guess the main message.
We might have to do a round two.
Oh, really?
I was just getting started.
I was just.
But yeah, it is pretty hot in here.
Yeah, it is. It's hot. Yeah. But just I guess the main message of this whole thing was to, I guess, take a step away from this fast-paced world. I guess take a step away, learn your culture, be kind, loving,
to pray, to believe in those prayers.
Yeah, believe in those prayers. Be reconnect. It doesn't matter what you believe in. Whether you want to go to Sundance, whether or not you want to go to church. I think everybody has their own right to believe in what they want to believe. But at the same time, we need to be kind to one another. You know what I mean? We need to show each other compassion.
I think wake up and enjoy your day. Don't let other people control your day. Don't let your emotions or unhealed emotions control your day. We can change our situation. So if your day's not going good, make it a good day. You have the ability to make it a good day, to figure out a way to work hard to make every day a good day, because life is a gift. You wake up every day, that's a gift. Not a lot. We're losing a lot of people today, and not some of them aren't waking up, and that life is done, and it's not up to us. We don't have no control over that, but all we have control over is making the life that we do have a good life. So wake up, find that peace. Find that peace within your day. It's not about being happy all the time. It's about finding that peace and enjoying the life that you have.
So thank you, Keyvin, for coming in. That was Kevin Waterchief. We will have we are going to be for all of those listening out there, we will be.
We didn't get to share my schedule.
Oh yes. Before we sign off here, I'll just let Kevin show the schedule for the programming that he's doing for the prevention, early intervention. So go ahead.
Yeah, for Siksika prevention and early intervention, we try to create healthier outlets for our community, for the children, for the families, for everybody in general. So we do have some good things coming up in August. We have a dinosaur park date day trip for children. We also have some Blackfoot games for the children to learn. Um, again, he'll be sharing the schedule with you guys. He'll be letting you know which dates these things will be happening on. We are also having a back to school barbecue towards the end of August here. We have a bunch of different other programs: Cycle of Life, ceremonial dressmaking. We have a mountain camp. We have a Siksika culture camp. We also have a hairstyling program, and then a youth game night. So these are just some of the things briefly that I'm sharing with you that you can take the opportunity for your family or any children that you have or any youth that you have to take part in these things, because it's very important that we take advantage of these opportunities. People behind the scenes are working hard to create these opportunities for our community, so it's important that we try and get there and fill these up, so that we're making the most of our time. So if you want to sign up for any of these things, you can contact to register. The number is 587-743-0715. 587-743-0715. Or you can email them at preventionadmin@siksikafamilyservices.com. So our vision statement is keeping our families together, strong families, strong communities, Siksika culture in action. That's our vision statement. So
Yeah, thank you so much for coming in once again. It means a lot for you to come in, teach a little bit give a little bit of your knowledge, teach a little bit about life. I think that's one of the things that a lot of different people have to offer, is that they have everybody has something to teach. You know what I mean? So yeah, once again, thank you for coming in. That was Sit Down with Nin'na, episode 15.
thank you for having me.
Yeah, anytime. So yeah, see you later.